A battle to the death. Classic albums clash until there's only one left. A killer contest, but before we get to it, there's rules to this game, so let me tell you how we do it. 8 classic albums, 1 classic year. Draw 'em out the hat and chew the fat right here. We rate 'em, deflate 'em, discuss 'em and debate 'em, analyze the beats and quote the lyrics verbatim. When all is said and done, we put it to the vote and tell you which of them is won. Then it's to the semis and the final for the vinyl cassette or CD. So who will it be? We going all in, so on the sound of the whistle, let the games begin. Record shot! To the hip, dip, the hop, you don't stop.
Hello and welcome to Hip Hop World Cup, the podcast that pits golden age hip hop albums against each other in a contest to find the ultimate champion. I'm your host, Danny Phillips, and joining me as ever are Steve Hitchcock. How you doing, Steve?
Yeah, I'm good. Hi, everybody.
And James Larry Luscombe. All right, James?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
Good, very well, thank you. Yeah, so welcome to this bonus episode where we're taking a look at some of the albums that didn't quite make their way into our main episodes for each year of hip hop's golden age. The idea for the show actually came from an email we had from one of our regular listeners who wrote the following. Hi guys, love the show. Nothing beats slipping naked into a hot bubble bath with a glass of sherry, listening to you three analysing 90s hip hop. It would be great if you did an episode putting the best of your honourable mentions up against each other in the Hip Hop World Cup, as there were stacks of dope albums that didn't make the cut. Please make my wish come true. Best wishes, Sir Jeff Hurst. Well, Jeff, it looks like your wish has come true, as that's exactly what we're doing. So,
lovely image as well of him in the tub.
Image, isn't it? I think he might have written that while he was in the bath as well.
Yeah,
it sounds like it. So basically, this show is we're going to be looking at the albums that we all kind of felt should have been in some of our earlier episodes. The really, really strong albums that, for one reason or another, I don't know, perhaps only one of us liked it or whatever, didn't make it into our regular episodes. So we've picked the 8 best of those, and we're going to put them up against each other in a Hip Hop World Cup. What are your thoughts on that, James? Steve? Exciting times.
I'm looking forward to this. I think it'd be nice to kind of get your objective views on the best of the rest, and I know you two are going to be really fair tonight. And actually, Dan, it's funny that Jeff kind of wrote in because, as you know, we've been getting kind of a lot of mail, haven't we? This is like one of the latest shows, and
loads.
I just wanted to read out one of the letters we had as well, actually. So,
go on.
Dear Hip Hop World Cup, I needed to write to the Hip Hop World Cup HR department to file a bullying complaint on behalf of me. Because of the amount of ganging up that's being done against me. That's from Ross. And I think that's a really kind of fair point tonight. So I really hope you two are going to kind of be a lot fairer than you are normally, and perhaps, I don't know, listen to my opinions. And I'm hoping that the albums I've chosen are going to get through to the semi-final and the final. So,
and this is a letter that's come directly to you rather than through the official channels.
It's a real person, Ross Burns.
A written letter on paper.
It came in electronic format, and it may have come directly to me, but it's still to the World Cup.
And you solicited the message.
It sounds like you're bullying me again. This is terrible.
Well, anyway, listen, Ross. If that is indeed your real name, what can we say? I mean,
Ross Hitchcock, is it?
Ross Hitchcock. Maybe we would have considered more of Steve's albums had he not wanted to get Tupac in every episode, no matter how good the quality of his albums. I don't know. He sounds like he's banging the same drum episode after episode. And it's just sour grapes.
And he's not in this episode either, so that's even more irritating.
No. So sorry about that, Ross. We'll try and do our best to be fair and try and give Steve a fair crack of the whip. But some of the albums he's selected for this episode, it may or may not happen. So if any reason you don't know how this show works by now, here's a quick recap of the rules.
Ladies and gentlemen,
it's the damn hot World Cup. Rules to the shit. Damn hot World Cup. Rules to the shit. There's rules to this game, so let me tell you how we do it. It's the damn hot World Cup. Rules to the shit. Only the strong survive. It's the damn hot World Cup.
So here are the rules. Using a scientific process of shortlists and horse trading, Danny, James and Steve agree on a list of 8 albums from the chosen year, which will compete for the Hip Hop World Cup. In each round, our pundits draw the albums from a hat to decide who plays who, then discuss each match and vote for the album they want to win. Albums with the most votes progress through the rounds to the final, where the lads vote again to decide which album is the undisputed Hip Hop World Cup champion. Let the games begin.
James, any news on True Score? Have you been sort of tinkering with it, tweaking it, optimizing it?
I can't speak too much about it because there is an NDA in play, but I haven't had access to True Score for several weeks now.
Oh.
And that's really all I can say. They, and when I say they, I mean the kind of the authorities, didn't like the fact that a hip-hop analysis app also had access to the pictures of people's smartphones. We argued that it was just, it was a dual-purpose app. It was fulfilling the needs of people who like photography and hip-hop analysis.
And the data was being fed back where?
It was being fed back into a server that I can't really get into. But it's the authorities' definition of photography didn't really gel what we thought was artistically valid.
I suppose CCTV footage isn't really in swimming pool changing rooms.
That was their argument, but
yeah. Well, perhaps okay. Well, mate. Oh, that's a shame. You're going to have to go off the cuff tonight.
I've been flying solo on this one. Yeah.
So we're going to
quite an unnerving experience.
Raw, uncut opinions straight from the mind of James Luscombe and not verified by True Score. These are exciting times.
Yeah, that might work in my favour.
Cool. Well, in that case, let's crack straight on with it. I'm going to read through the 8 albums that have made it into our Hip Hop World Cup Best of the Rest episode. They are as follows. Diamond D and the Psychotic Neurotics, Stunts, Blunts and Hip Hop from 1992. Redman's Whut the Album, also from 1992. Kurious, A Constipated Monkey from 1994. And Nine Lives from 95. We've got Puba's 2000 and AZ's Doe or Die. Group Home's Livin Proof, and finally Dr. Octagon's Octogonecologyst. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, close enough.
Octogonecologyst.
Yeah.
So those are your 8 albums. We're going to be digging into those in a moment. So before we crack on, I know this is a honourable mentions Best of the Rest episode where we're sort of covering the Best of the Rest, didn't get into the episode. But are there any chaps that still didn't make it in that you would have liked to have seen in here that even, through our usual process didn't quite make the cut? Steve?
Yeah, well, I was arguing quite heavily, wasn't I, for DJ Shadow, which you two kind of poo-pooed straight away, which is a kind of classic hip-hop album. So I don't know what was up with you two with that one.
Well, I don't know it, never heard it. And also, isn't it an instrumental? I don't know whether that can qualify.
Yeah, we haven't had any instrumental albums, have we?
Yeah,
at this point.
That is true. It is a seminal instrumental album, though.
I mean, it probably was. I mean, not necessarily the first instrumental hip hop album, but it was certainly the kind of first big one, I think.
Yeah. And I know it's really loved by a lot of people, but sadly, I'm not one of them.
We couldn't get Tupac in here either. Me Against the World. That was a bit of a travesty.
Yeah. Poor old Tupac. As if being dead wasn't bad enough. He couldn't even make it into this. Larry, any Best of the Rest?
I'm just trying to kind of cast my mind back to the voting. Really, the only one that really springs to mind is No ID's album. Can't quite remember the name. It's Accept Your Own and Be Yourself. I think the Black Album.
Yeah. Really good album though. There's some great production on there.
It's kind of it's a bit of a half and half. It's got some really astonishingly good tracks on it, and the rest is filler.
Yeah,
let's be honest. But the good tracks are really, really great, and I would urge anyone to seek it out. It doesn't really get any mentions anywhere that I can see, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very slept-on album. For me, I think, as ever, I've been trying to shoehorn this one in for ages, but Trends of Culture's 93 album, Trends, is just one of my all-timers. Love it to bits, and it just doesn't get mentioned. It's got Off and On there, which is an absolute banger. And I'd like to have seen that one in and talk about that in greater detail. And also, I think the only other one was the Cellar Dwellers album, Realms and Reality. Listened to it again not so long ago, probably not as good as my memory tells me it was, but still a really, really, really good album. So yeah, two, I just kind of, we had to make our minds up about the ones we wanted to see back in here, didn't we? And some of them had to, had to go. And, I think what we've got here are 8 that are really, really strong.
It's a very kind of even field, I think. I'm not sure who's going to win tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so without further ado, let's crack on with round 1.
World Cup, round 1. World Cup, round 1. World Cup, round 1. World Cup, round 1.
Welcome back. You join us here at the Hip Hop World Cup Best of the Rest episode, and we're about to go into round 1. Our 8 albums are lining up ready to do battle. So to get things moving along in round 1, the matches were drawn and voted on earlier today, which gives us a chance to kind of talk about the losing albums more in round 1, and then move on to the winners in greater detail in the semis and the final. So the first match that was played was Diamond D's Stunts, Blunts and Hip Hop up against Redman's What the Album, and these two 92 albums were drawn against each other, which is quite interesting. 2 of the bigger albums from that year. This one was a 2-1 win for Redman, unsurprising enough for me. I think that's a very fair result. But Steve, you voted for Diamond, didn't you, in this one?
Yeah, I was absolutely gutted when this was drawn against Redman, because I knew that you two would vote for it. It's like, oh no, this is typical. But this is one of my favourite albums ever. Every time I listen to this, it just gets me so excited about hip hop. I think it's like classic early 90s hip hop. The beats are brilliant. The tracks are quite melodic, I think. Very kind of simple. Rap integrated some classic lines on there. I love the samples. Just for me, it's just like classic early hip hop or early 90s hip hop. As he says himself, the rhymes are dope and the beats are ill. And it's also got a bit of like provenance, because it's like, DITC, Diamond D's, such an important like figure in hip hop. It's, for me, it's like a historic album. I love going back and listening to it over and over again. And it is a long album, isn't it? It's 23 tracks on there, but I love listening all the way through. And it's just got, I don't actually know what you two think about this. I don't know which tracks you like on it, whether you kind of agree with me, but I can put this album on and just listen to it over and over and over and again, particularly when it gets to the end. I love Feel the Vibe. I think that's an absolute brilliant head nodder. So what do you two think? Is it just me that likes this kind of sound, or is it?
I don't think you're not. I mean, I'll go first. You're not wrong to really like it. I mean, have you always had it? Like since back in the day?
No, I didn't get it in 92. No. So
did it come out in 92, or was it one of those ones that was? It did actually come out. It actually
came out. Yeah.
Because I had it in my head. It was always sort of quite a rare sort of album.
Yeah, it was rare, but it had some kind of really classic tracks that were quite well known, like A Day in a Life. That's a really kind of famous one, and Best Kept Secret.
I think it was slightly before Diamond D, as he went on to be called. Kind of blew up as a producer.
It was sort of before the whole kind of DITC stuff. It was like sort of Jizz's first album or something.
Yeah, I mean, they're on here. A few of those guys are on it, aren't they? But
yeah, you've got Showbiz on there. You've got even like a skit with Big L.
Yeah.
You've got Brand Nubian appear at different points.
Yeah. I mean, it's the early kind of seeds of the DITC crew, and they might have even been calling themselves that, but. It's a very early kind of prototype Diamond D that you get in this album, I think. But Larry, what's your relationship like with Diamond D as a producer in general? Like, as hip hop went on.
I can't say that I couldn't really name any of his tracks. I'm sure that if we kind of went through like the Big L album, for example, I'm sure there'll be like a few Diamond D beats on there that are kind of some of my all-time favorites. But he's not somebody he's not like Premier or someone like that or Pete Rock, who I sort of know that's his. Yeah, those are his beats. So I can't really say, to be honest. I certainly never had this at the time, and I also never kind of got it during my sort of second wave of hip hop kind of fandom, sort of in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I did pick up a lot of these older albums. And I think at the time, this was just a really sort of hard to come by kind of CD or record, and I just never got it. So I don't have a relationship with it. I think actually, like, given that it is 1992, it is quite advanced sounding for that period.
I'd agree with that.
It sounds a little bit later than that, but it just kind of strikes me as it's very overlong. I think it's sort of 20 odd tracks on there, which is just silly.
Yeah.
There's a nice little album in there somewhere. I think the good tracks are often really, really good. Not that I could sort of really name any. But yeah, just far too much average stuff on there. Quite a few sort of skitty sort of things. And I don't know, it sounds, a lot of it production wise, it's a little bit kind of sloppy sounding, like it's kind of raw, but not in necessarily a way that I like. Don't know. He's a quite good rapper, but nothing really to get too excited about. And it just goes into that category of albums where I suspect I probably would have liked it if I had it all these years, but I just find it very hard to kind of gel with albums like this that I come to in later years, basically.
Yeah, I guess it's all about the context at the time and where you were and how you felt when you first heard it. It's hard to recreate that sort of thing.
I just think, hip hop, apart from a handful, it's not really an album genre. It's a kind of, it's a.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's a. Okay, like there's maybe like 10 or 20.
Yeah,
like really kind of absolutely solid gold classics. Like, I guess my point is, like, this isn't a good album. Like, there are lots of really good tracks on it, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's just
yeah. I mean, I have to say, personally, me, I never had this when it first came out. I had to sort of record it off somebody else, and I never really played it much back in those days. I was very aware of Diamond and who he was, and sort of I remember seeing the videos. I think it was for Sally Got a One Track Mind and Best Kept Secret, I think, were on MTV Raps, and I remember those. I think they were the singles, and liked them at the time. I just, for some reason, didn't sort of compel me to go and check out the album at the time. I guess it was 92 and maybe a bit more choosy about what we could and couldn't buy. Perhaps if I had more disposable income, then I might have picked it up and grown to love it over the years, but just never had it. So I got it later in the day, and just never really loved it, but which is weird because if I had to compile a top 10 of my favourite producers, I think Diamond D might make it in there. He's done lots of stuff on other people's albums, later on. I think I was first introduced to him on the Fat Joe album. Some of the stuff he did on that, Represent. I think he did Flow Joe and things like that. Yeah. And I liked him from that moment on. Obviously, we've talked about the track he did on House of Pain's album, and he did Let It Out on the Alcoholics, which is a banger. And also there's one on the D&D Project album from 94 or 5, Larry, that I think
5, I think, yeah.
Yeah, that he did. So yeah, I'm a fan of his and I like his stuff, but for some reason I got into him after this album and this one kind of got buried. So inevitably that was going to result in me voting for Redman over this, but I know it's a really, really important album to you, Steve, so it's nice to let you have your say on it. Okay, so let's leave that one then. So that's a 2-1 win for Redman there, so he goes through to the semi-final.
Come on, y'all, get live, get down. Hip hop World Cup in your town. Come on, y'all, get live, get down. Hip hop World Cup in your town. Hip hop World Cup.
The next match in round 1 is Kurious's A Constipated Monkey from 94 versus 9 Lives by 9. Now, this was another 2-1 win for Kurious. So we had myself and Steve voting for Kurious, and Larry went for 9. So I'll be really interested. Let's start with Larry, because I'm really interested to know why you picked 9 over Kurious on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a close run thing, to be honest. It would have been quite useful to have true score for this one, I think. So it would have been interesting to see what the system came up with. But yeah, for me, they're not kind of in my regular rotation, and sort of never have been really. I think I gave 9 the nod just because, I don't know, I just think it's always interesting when you've got a rapper with a really sort of unique voice, which 9 definitely does.
Yeah.
And the production is quite sort of unique sounding as well.
Yeah.
There's something a bit sort of, it's hard to explain, but something a bit sort of wonky about some of the music on there. If you know what I mean?
The way the samples are processed.
I think, it's sort of, I think a lot of the
detuned
I think there's been sort of repitched quite a lot of them, which often sort of give things quite a sort of ethereal, kind of dreamy feeling.
Yeah, but it feels like that's kind of the mood he's going for with it.
Definitely,
very much so.
yeah.
If you look at some of the artwork on the back with the smoke, and it's very blunted and
a nightmarish kind of delirious kind of sound, which I like. It's got some really nice sort of classic 95 drums on there, sort of really big and crunchy drums. Like shit is a good example of that. I think What You Want is still great. That's kind of always been the standout for me. I absolutely love that track. And again, sort of like quite unique with that sort of orchestral kind of sample in it
and stuff.
I think that's the thing I said about this when we talked about his second album. The producer's a guy called Rob Lewis, which, as I said, sounds like somebody in the year above you at school. And he's just got a really weird kind of distinctive sound, and I think that's really accounts for a lot, because it's really hard to plow your own furrow in hip hop, isn't it, to try and get a sound that is unique to you. And he really has done that across the two albums, and he's a really interesting producer. And some of the beats on this are really interesting, like not the sort of stuff you hear anywhere else. But What You Want was just massive. I mean, that's such a big tune. It's massive. That's kind of up there in the sort of Mount Rushmore of kind of classic singles, definitely.
I think.
Yes, it's like on the Alien playlist. I used to just turn that one up so loud. It's one of those that you kind of turn it up and you want that beat when the beat comes in.
Yeah.
Just
and
blows
I think
it out of the park.
like as good as the beat is on that, like he really sells it, like with his voice and his flow as well. Like any other rapper on there, it'd still be a good beat, but he really, I know, it's really special, kind of that great beat combined with his really unique voice and flow.
It's
I actually prefer NEMC. That's the one that I kind of think kind of tops it. There's some really lovely production on that as well, and I think 9 just flows so nicely on that track. It's a real kind of head nodder. Yeah,
it's amazing, that track. That was one of the other singles as well. It's samples I'll Get Around by the Spinners. Amazing beat. I was going to mention that one as well.
How do you both feel about the track with Froggy Frog on it?
I absolutely hate it. It's one of the most annoying tracks I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that. I think that was misguided. The introduction of Froggy Frog. Is that 9 doing a voice, or is it Froggy Frog a separate entity?
I think it's him. I think it's like a MC Blowfish kind of thing, isn't it?
It's terrible.
Like Positive K on I Got a Man.
It almost like ruins the album. It's
I wouldn't go that. It is a bit silly, but I don't hate it.
I would have liked to have heard a whole Froggy Frog album, to be honest with you. Rob Lewis on the beats. I'd like to have heard that. Steve, what's your relationship with this 9 album like then? I mean, is it one that you listen to a lot?
I originally thought I was going to vote for this album really easily, and I talk about Kurious in the kind of next round. And when I went back and listened to it, I was like, he is really great. I love 9, and I don't know. There's just something about this album that he's so raw and aggressive that I think in the end it really it's starting to grind me down now. I don't know if that's kind of my age or what it might be, but there's just not as a whole album. It's just, I don't know, it's too abrasive. I don't know. Maybe abrasive isn't the right word. It's just so raw. It just grinds on me so much.
I was literally just going to say use the word abrasive. So I think that's a good word.
Yeah. So I like it, but I've realised I probably don't like it as much as I used to. That's why I had to kind of vote for Kurious in the end.
Yeah. So there we have it. So 9 going out in the first round to Kurious on that one, 2-1. So moving on to the third match, and this for me is a heavyweight tie.
This is the big one.
This was the big one.
Yeah,
a real head scratcher. I think this one. It caused us quite a few problems. But it's Grand Puba's 2000 versus AZ's Doe or Die. Grand Puba, if you remember from a previous episode, was the one that was not included through an administrative error.
Error,
on Steve's part. So I think there might have been some brown envelopes handed around, but so he's finally made his way into one of our episodes. It's Grand Puba versus AZ's Doe or Die, and in this one, a sensational match, a 2-1, another 2-1 victory for Grand Puba, knocking AZ out. I voted for Grand Puba, Larry voted for Grand Puba, and Steve went for AZ. So like we did last time, Steve, let's hear from you first as to why you voted for AZ and buck the trend that me and Larry set.
Yeah, do you know what? I think probably because I made the administrative error, I thought I can't vote for Puba because I feel like I don't know, there's a kind of theme going on here. But it was so close, honestly. It was so close. I do feel really bad that he missed out, and it is a great album. We'll obviously talk about that in the next round. But the AZ album's like, I don't know. It's like it's a 95 album. It's got that kind of classy kind of 95 vibe, and AZ's really underrated, I think, as a rapper. He doesn't kind of get the props he deserves because he can actually rap really well. And there's loads of good beats in this album. It's a funny album. It's got a kind of, I think, like quite a lot of variety in terms of the beats, which I think causes it to lack a little bit with kind of cohesion. It doesn't feel like a proper album, but there's obviously some like absolutely amazing tracks on there. Like Give Me Yours is great. Ho Happy Jackie, Rather Unique. It's just classic Pete Rock, which I bet, Danny, you absolutely love that track. And there's a track on there called Your World Won't Stop. And I don't know, Larry, do you know there's an Atmosphere track called Little Man? It's kind of like got a very similar sample.
So every time, like Atmosphere.
Every time I listen to it, I'm like, it's such a nice track. So yeah, it's a classy album, I think. But very close. I think maybe, on another day I would have voted for 2000.
Yeah, Larry, what are your thoughts on AZ then? Because I know you're a fan of AZ, but
yeah, I mean, to say I'm a fan of AZ is probably pushing it. I don't think I've heard anything outside of this album apart from his kind of verses on Illmatic.
On Illmatic, yeah.
I think just anything that he released subsequent to this was just during times of my life when I just wasn't kind of listening to a lot of rap, really. I think it's just a crying shame, this album. It's such a missed opportunity. I think it's kind of half like 5 mic classic stuff, and then the rest of it is just kind of okay without ever getting kind of really crap. I think he's a good
way of describing it, Larry.
Like it's kind of, it's mainly like the first half of the album, like Uncut Raw, Gimme Yours, Ho Happy Jackie, Rather Unique. Like if the rest of the album kind of continued in that vein, it would be absolute, like, just 5-star stuff. I think like Mo Money Mo Murder is also kind of on that level. Sugar Hill I used to kind of really like, but I can sort of take it or leave it a bit now, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
And then the rest of it is just, it's all right, but just in comparison to the stuff that you've got on the first half, all of which is just so good. It's just such a shame that the rest of it doesn't kind of live up to that standard, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you both sort of mirrored my thoughts exactly on this album.
He's such a good rapper.
He's such a good rapper. Like, after hearing the verse on Life's a Bitch on Illmatic, I don't think I've ever, apart from Snoop Doggy Dogg's album, I don't think I've ever been as excited for an album as I have for the AZ album.
Yeah.
Because his flow on that verse was just out of this world.
Yeah.
And the way he structures sentences and his verses and his stanzas, or whatever you want to call it, is so intricate. He'll rhyme words within each line rather than just at the end of the line, and he'll come up with these structures that are just really clever. And he's so like verbose and dexterous. He just has a really good way. It's a really good way of rapping that I really connected with, all from the Illmatic verse.
Yeah, there's a really good example of this on here, on his first verse on Mo Money Mo Murder.
Yeah,
which is just
You're done before the sun sets. Can't connect.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's that flow that's really
yeah.
interesting and engaging, and that's the sort of rapper I like. So many rappers are just very straight down the line, one line, another line that rhymes with it, blah blah blah. He'll do all these gymnastics within each line and come up with all these really amazing intricate words and rhymes that, like, I'd never heard anything like that before. So as a result, I was so excited about this album coming out.
To me, he's a little bit like Common, in that he kind of almost seemed to be, he's one of these rappers that comes along and sort of advances the art form a little bit.
Yeah, he's one of those, you can almost tell, like, when he's rapping and when he's writing his rhymes, he's trying to show off. He's trying to show that he's a proper rapper.
But he's the best. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's competitive with it.
Exactly.
And which I guess he had to be. Like, if he was like coming up with Nas, like, you can't fuck about, can you?
You can't,
really?
no. You can't, especially when you come on with a verse as iconic as that one on Life's a Bitch. It's like he had to follow it up.
Like, it's almost as if he's like as good as Nas on some level, I think.
Yeah, he holds his own.
He's got the capacity to be.
Yeah, well, I always liked him better than Nas. I thought he was a better rapper than Nas. This is why I was so excited about the album coming out.
He's got a really nice tone to his voice, hasn't he, as well?
He has. It's really, really engaging. But so I was, I heard that verse and I got the album, and the track where I heard the promise be fulfilled that I heard in Illmatic the most is in Rather Unique.
Yeah.
When I first heard that track, I was hearing the AZ I thought I was going to get from Life's a Bitch, because he goes overboard on that track. He goes.
I love his verses on that.
It's incredible. Like, I was been listening to it in the car over the last week, and I still cannot get over that track. But it's not just the lyrics; it's the beat as well. Pete Rock, I think that might be my favourite Pete Rock beat. It's amazing. He takes a few chords at the end of a Les McCann track, a jazz song, and it's like just as the track's fading out, and he takes that, loops it up, and the beat is so hard and so crisp, and he puts little James Brown samples in there as well, and it's just the perfect marriage of lyrics and beat for me. And it's jazzy. And for me, if I had to compile a top 10, all-time hip-hop tracks, that's going straight on there for me. It's just absolutely out of this world. It's just a shame, like, as you say, Larry, the rest of the album doesn't kind of live up to that. You've got, for me, this album is about 3 tracks. It's about Give Me Yours, Ho Happy Jackie, and Rather Unique, and at a push, Mo Money, Mo Murder, Homicide.
I really love Uncut Raw's got like quite a like really inventive beat on it.
It's got that like kind of tom, it's like on the offbeat, isn't it?
But it's also got kind of what sounds like a gun clip being emptied or something. Do you know what I mean?
It kind of rolls, doesn't it? Yeah, it rolls. Yeah. I like it. Yeah, I do like it. It's not quite the knockout track that I felt this album should open with, but it's still a good opening and still kind of sets out the stall for the album.
There's also just looking at the version of it on Tidal, which is kind of how I listen to it, most recently. It doesn't have Born Alone, Die Alone on it.
It's not. It's listed in the credits on the CD, but it's not on there.
Right.
I was going to bring this up as well. It's I'd love to know what happened to that. I bet it's online somewhere or something. But
what, Born Alone, Die Alone?
Yeah. Have you heard it?
It's on. You've got it on your CD, I'm sure.
No, it's listed, but it's not on there. It's
really?
Not on there. Yeah.
Oh well, I've got it.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
I don't know. I'm guessing it's on my CD. Yeah, it's a good track. That's why it's annoying that it's not on there.
But yeah, so you've got those 3 amazing tracks. Mo Money, Mo Murder is kind of like a good as well, but not quite up to the level of the other 3. But everything else that surrounds it, it veers from incredibly bad to
no cohesion, is there?
There's no cohesion whatsoever. Too much variety.
This album doesn't have any identity. It's like, what does it want to be? It's like,
this should have been Illmatic 2 or something. This should have been like his Illmatic, but it's just he went too wide ranging with the producers he chose. Like he's used on the title track Doe or Die, he uses N.O. Joe, who is the producer of the Ghetto Boys.
Yeah, it's like a G-funk style.
Yeah, it's a weird. It's not
southern sound, like the Ghetto Boys.
Doesn't
sound.
fit. It just doesn't fit.
And I'm sorry, but like for me, I Feel For You is one of the worst hip hop beats I've ever heard in my life. It's dreadful. I Feel For You, the one after Rather Unique. I don't think it's that horrendous.
I don't think it's that bad.
Oh God, it's terrible.
Is that one of the sort of like, it's got like a bell?
Yeah, the bell.
Yeah,
and they've got a woman singing. It's just absolutely dreadful. And then
you go to weirdly kind of off-key, sort of weird sounding.
Strange. And then you get towards the end of the album, like We Can't Win, and Your World Don't Stop's all right. I mean, I'm just looking at the credits. It's originally produced by Spunk Biggs,
Right.
I wonder what he's doing now. But the one on the album was remixed by Ski, who produced Dead Presidents for Jay-Z. So that's pretty good, that track. And then the Sugar Hill remix by LES, who's the Illmatic connection, who produced Life's a Bitch.
Yeah.
So it's just a real hodgepodge of an album. And I just think if it had been, like you say, if it had been the quality of Gimme Yours, Hey Happy Jackie, and Rather Unique all the way through, I think we could have been talking about this as an all-time classic. But unfortunately, it's not.
I think most people kind of
cut.
No, I think most people sort of agree with it as well. That's the thing. Like you always get people who, I don't know. There's not always complete agreement on whether beats are good or bad, is there? But I think on this, everyone recognises it's just a bit of a missed opportunity, and I just don't get it. I don't get how you can hear those beats and think, oh yeah, that deserves to be on this album, in the same way that Rather Unique on the same album as Rather Unique. Yeah, like how can you not have access to better beats than that? Or if you think that's good, I know that it just baffles me really, how you'd think, yeah, it's a good beat for me to rap on. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, it's rather unsurprising that Grand Puba beat AZ 2-1 in that game. So that's Grand Puba Maxwell going through to the next round. So just to tie up the first round matches now, we've got an interesting one. We've got Group Home's Living Proof up against Dr. Octagon's Octogonecologyst from 96. Now this one was, I think they were all 2-1, these matches. This was a 2-1 win for Group Home. Me and Larry voted for Group Home, and Dr. Octagon was voted for by Steve, again the dissenting voice.
Yep.
So do you want to get into it, Steve, or do you want us to go first?
No, I'm really happy to go first, because I think what I wanted to probably do first of all is probably attack the Living Proof album, because I don't think this is a good album. In fact, like the best, I was trying to think of a good way to kind of describe this. Like, so this is obviously produced by DJ Premier, and so the production on this is fantastic. The rapping isn't. I actually think this would be a better album if it was just an instrumental album. And I feel that strongly about the rapping. And like there's some really like standout production on here. So the Living Proof title track, that's the one, isn't it? That's the famous one, isn't it? Has got an absolutely cracking beat. Proper like boom bap. It's one of those proper like, I don't know, it's like Shook ones, or those really classic kind of New York sound. But it's not, I don't think, regarded in the same kind of like way as like Shook ones, or some of those other tracks, because the rapping on it is so forgettable. So I listened to it like several times just to check this. There is nothing on there that is quotable from Little Dap and Malachi the Nut.
Oh, what? Even I hit your mums in the head with a metal pipe.
Oh, I was gonna read you that lyric in a minute.
It's terrible. There's nothing in there that I've seen
on the head with a metal pipe.
It's an absolutely lazy effort from the rapping. Absolutely terrible effort. So like, I feel I kind of like just have to park that kind of assault on Living Proof, because that will come. Obviously, we're gonna have to talk about it next round. But then like, if you just kind of like juxtaposition that next to Cool Keith and Damn the Automator. So like the production on Dr. Octogonologist is just amazing. And I think, Larry, I was so hoping that these two albums weren't going to get drawn together, because I knew that your loyalty would be divided, because you just love that Living Proof album. But I think hopefully you would agree that actually this again is like a really seminal album in hip hop, because of the production really kind of opens up loads of kind of like independent underground hip hop kind of from this point forward. And then with Cool Keith, like, couldn't be a bigger contrast between his rapping and like Little Dap. I mean, Cool Keith is one of the greatest rappers ever. He is such a talent. He's so talented. Who were you talking about a minute ago, Danny, saying like they're kind of like it's probably AZ, wasn't it? I mean,
AZ.
And Cool Keith is just like another level above him. He can just change his flow. His rapping is just ridiculous. It's either like stream of consciousness or like traditional rapping or just like that kind of like horrorcore stuff that he invented. And it's just so matched. The rapping and the beats are so well matched. And that's why I always say I love a long player. This is a great long player. I love all the tracks. Listen to it from beginning to the end. The skits are absolutely nonsense. They're absolutely daft, but they kind of add to that kind of like Cool Keith aesthetic. So
where does it stand alongside your other Cool Keith albums to you? In the pantheon.
The pantheon of Cool Keith albums. It probably is my favourite. I like the stuff. I like the Ultramagnetic album we did. What's his first Ultramagnetic album called? Can't even think now. But you know, this is definitely, probably definitely my favourite album. It's just brilliant. It's just fantastic. So much talent on this album compared to Living Proof, where the only talent is in the production.
So I've never really heard you talk about this one, Larry. Is this something you're a fan of, this album, the Dr. Octagon?
I mean, yeah, sorry, Steve. It's going to be another one where I disappoint you, unfortunately.
I know this is like a regular theme. I think I'm learning more about you than I realised.
Yeah, you would think that I would like it, wouldn't you? It's weird. It kind of it feels it's ahead of its time. I'll give it that much. It feels like it. I was surprised that it was out. Is it 96?
Yeah, it's 96. So I mean,
that did surprise me a bit. I kind of, in my mind, it was kind of like a late 90s kind of raucous kind of Def Jux kind of era than the golden age. I guess 96 is a bit of a sort of, changing point, isn't it? But I know I'll kind of appreciate that I'll have my membership of the of Backpack Rap Club revoked for this, but I just don't see the appeal of Cool Keith whatsoever. Like, never have at all, really. I think he's got like his voice is what he's got going for him. I do like his voice, and he's like almost second to none in terms of like a voice that you can sample for a hook on something else. Like the Prodigy did, for example, for one or two tracks. But I just don't like him, and it just sounds too try hard and trying too hard to be sort of weird and clever, and like the production as well. I just instantly want to kind of turn off like 95% of the tracks. On here, I don't like Dan Automator.
Which ones do you like?
I can't. I could barely listen to it. There's something about Dan Automator or Dan the Automator. I know he's another one of these kind of really highly regarded kind of underground, kind of weird core sort of hip hop producers, like an LP or someone on that level. But I just find his beats really kind of unappealing and boring. Like Deltron, I kind of hate that album as well for the same reason.
Larry.
Just so dull. It's energy draining. It just kind of saps the joy out of the room when I listen to his stuff.
It's so strange. Do you like LP so much? I always think they're kind of like.
This is what I was thinking. Is like I remember kind of when I was like really obsessed with like that kind of first round of Def Jux stuff, like the Cannibal Ox album and LP's first album, and I remember sort of I used to like put it on in my flat, and like Lee and Matt would come around and I'd put it on, and they would just be kind of begging me to turn it off because it was such a kind of abrasive, horrible listen. And that's kind of how I feel about this album. Really, I just don't get it. I just instantly want it off, and it just makes me feel bad listening to it. And I can't explain it any more than that.
I think it's now you've got to work hard to kind of enjoy it, and it's not something that's going to grab you straight away. But that's this kind of album I thought that you liked,
it kind of a betting man would say that I would like this album. It's on that kind of like, it's like he's like the beats are in the kind of tradition of like RZA or LP, but those kind of dark, weird, kind of unusual producers who sort of kind of plow their own furrow, and I just don't. It just doesn't gel with me. I just don't like it at all. I just can't listen to it.
It's interesting what you say about him trying to be like clever and weird, and I think he is clever and weird.
He's definitely a weird. Yeah, but I'm sure it's not put on. It just feels to me like he's trying too much to kind of say weird things, and not just that, but to go back to the LP comparison. Like if you like the old, he's better these days, but in the old like Company Flow days, like LP and Big Just, they were so verbose and polysyllabic, and they didn't care about being like on beat and flowing properly. Yeah, but I always understood it. Yeah. But with Kool Keith, like his cadences, his kind of syntax is just so unmusical to me. I just don't. Maybe it's particularly bad on this album, and it's just put me off kind of listening to his other stuff. But
I think that's why he's so talented. I think he can change it up. I think he's got such a I don't know, agility when it comes to rap. But it's great. I wrote this down as well because his lyrics are so crazy. The one of the tracks, Wild and Crazy. I don't know if you two in the slightest enjoy that track, but I think that's my favourite. But in the chorus, the little hook he says is, "Fetus in a jar, I've got the little baby." It's just so random. Like, what planet is he on? Mental.
Yeah, it's complete stream of consciousness, psychedelic kind of stuff, isn't it? Like I can see. I feel like I'm missing out on something by not getting it. But yeah, he's someone I just can't get into. I find him boring, really.
Yeah.
Danny, what about you?
Well, look, Steve, I love you. One of my oldest friends.
I don't even want to hear it, actually.
Yeah.
Can we just move on?
I don't want you to feel like we're ganging up on you again. But what the hell is this album doing in here? Honestly, I gave it a fair crack of the whip, and I've listened to it a few times. And it's just not for me. I have to say, the music, the beats, I thought they were okay. I thought they were all right. To me, the album kind of has a kind of a Gravediggers vibe. It's kind of not in terms of the music, well, nowhere near as good, but just in terms of what it's shooting for, kind of a dark sort of horror, weirdness about it. But like Larry says, the way he raps, it just does not grab me at all. Like he won't even it doesn't rhyme the words or whatever. Quite often, it's almost like he's rambling or babbling, and it doesn't really hit home for me. And yeah, I couldn't get on board with it at all. Some of it, I was looking at some of the lyrics because on Spotify the lyrics come up, didn't they? Yeah. I was looking at some of them. What is this about? I can, I quite imagine. Don't get me wrong. I quite imagine people at the time when it came out listened to it then and loved it, and I can see why people perhaps liked it. It's like you say, ahead of its time. Like, yeah, it doesn't really sound like anything else I've listened to. But yeah, just not for me at all. Really struggled. I had to really force myself to listen to it. But
I think it's regarded more and more now as a classic than when it was released, and I think probably it's regarded as a better album than Group Home.
Yeah, maybe. It felt to me like an album, like you both said, that came out later. Like it's from a different era of rap. Completely, even though I did recognise a lot of the breaks and the beats. There's a couple of synthetic substitution beats that chopped up, and I heard a Kool and the Gang break as well. It's all the bits are there, like from classic hip hop married to a kind of a future looking weird kind of off kilter sound. Very strange, but just not for me. But that probably doesn't surprise you at all, Steve.
I bet you enjoyed some of the skits though.
They were the worst part. I just fast forwarded them. I saw they were only 48 seconds long, and I just I'm sorry, Steve, but not for me. So yeah,
I'm not disappointed in you. I'm definitely feeling that Larry and I are on a different page now.
Yeah. So much to your disdain, Steve, I'm afraid Group Home has gone through in that one. It's beaten Dr. Octagon and his gynecology obsession 2-1 to make it through to the semi-finals. So those are our 4 first round matches. We've got Redman, Kurious, Grand Puba, and Group Home going through to the semi-finals. Join us after these messages.
Semi-final. World Cup. Semi-final. World Cup. Who's that going to be? World Cup. Semi-final.
Okay, hi, you join us back here at our state-of-the-art facility located 60 feet beneath FIFA headquarters in Zurich. It's an old World War II bunker we had converted into a studio. It's got its own entrance and lift and tea-making facilities. The only people who have access to it are me, Steve and Larry, and Sepp Blatter, who just pops in every now and again when a birthday card needs signing or when he's doing a whip round. Otherwise, they just let us get on with it down here. And we've had this incredible virtual studio built, haven't we, chaps? It's really
Amazing.
phenomenal, which is where we are now going to do our semi-final draw. So I'm going to hand you over to Steve now to start the draw for the semi-final of this episode. And he's got someone in the studio with him. Who have you got there, Steve?
I've got two people, actually. So I was really struggling to get someone to do this draw, actually. So I don't like doing this because I know it costs a bit more money. But I decided to use an agent. So I thought, if I'm going to use an agent, let's use a super agent. So I've gone for George Mendes. Do you know him? He's like the super football one that like sorts out Ronaldo and all that sort of jazz.
No, never heard of him.
Is he the one that says monster all the time?
No, he's dead.
Oh, that's Eric. That was Eric Cool, wasn't it? That would have been even better.
Yeah, but hey, George Mendes, yeah.
Yep, he's come up the trumps really. He's managed to get us Crazy Legs. So
The breakdancer.
the breakdancer from the
Wow.
Rocks crew. So
And doing a bit of dancing there next to you, Steve. Do you want to talk us through that? It's
yeah, well,
quite something.
Well, Crazy Legs has agreed to kind of interpret how he feels about, our choices for the semi-final and the final, because as you know, we can't pay them enough to allow them to kind of appear.
Yeah, not allowed to talk.
They can't talk.
And it's a real shame that the people at home can't see.
Look at that. Can you see what he's doing?
Whoa, did you see that one? God, nearly took
Very
your eye out.
expressive.
Very expressive. Great. So who's going to draw the first ball then?
Yep, he's going to draw it out. So first, out,
Using his foot. That's amazing. Nice touch. Using a foot.
and it's Kurious.
Kurious into the semis. And who's he going to play?
It's Redman. What the album?
Wow. What a matchup. Should we just make it official and do the other one?
Yeah, because he's got some more moves here. Look at that.
Did Crazy Legs insist on doing this naked, or was that your instruction, Steve?
I thought we'd agreed we wouldn't kind of like broadcast that.
Yeah, and he's doing his own version of the windmill there as well, which is quite something. Quite a sight to behold.
I thought that was a caterpillar.
Like the worm. Cool. So that's Kurious versus Redman, and so just to make it official, the other tie.
He's pulled out Livin Proof and 2000.
Great.
Ran Puba.
Well, I mean that's a hefty heavyweight draw there. The first match.
Solid semis. Solid semis.
Solid
That's a good
semis.
draw, isn't it?
Absolutely. So let's start off.
Speaking of which,
Whoa, Crazy Legs. That was quite something.
He's going now, Crazy Legs.
Yeah, he's off. He's left the studio. Okay, thanks, Crazy Legs. So Kurious v Redman. Whoa, who wants to go first on this one? I'm going to start with you, Steve. Two amazing albums. How are you seeing this tie?
Okay. I honestly think that apart from the group Home album, which you've already heard, I'm not a big fan of. I really don't know who's going to win this World Cup, and I need to kind of hear your opinions definitely on these. And if I start with Kurious, so I'll admit that this wasn't an album that I was really kind of aware of. I think apart from a couple of tracks before we started doing this World Cup. And Danny, this is one that you absolutely love, and I can really see why you like it. It's produced by the Beatnuts, and actually this is the best Beatnuts album, I think. It's because the rapping is so much better than on a normal kind of Beatnuts album. It's, I think Kurious is he's quite clever, he's quite funny, he's got quite good flow. And there's an album that's kind of got kind of like no filler on it, really. I think the more I'm listening to it, the more I'm enjoying it, and thinking, actually, Danny, I think this is a bit of a slept on album. I think you have got like, good claim here to have found a good one. And yeah, I think he's a really good kind of match to the kind of Beatnuts and the Stimulated Dummies production. Some absolutely fantastic tracks on there. Love the first kind of track. Spell it with a J. I think that's probably one of the best ones on there. I don't know. They're just kind of like a nice range of tracks all over it. And I think it's one I'm going to kind of listen to more. So I really like that album. I don't know if you want to talk about that before we talk about the other one, because this is your favourite one, isn't it? This is your pick.
Well, I don't know. I mean, for me, this is an awful time for me because I absolutely adore both of these albums. This is like it's going to make it really hard for me. But then again, you know, there's one in the other tie that I would struggle to pick in this tie if it had got in there. But I mean, yeah, as you say, I love this album. It's fantastic. It came out in '94. I can't remember whether it came out before the Beatnuts album or after. But it's, for me, the Beatnuts album and this album are the perfect distillation of their sound and their production style. This has got so many great tracks on it. Most of them are the Beatnuts ones. And I just, I mean, it's right up my street. This is hip hop. This is the sort of hip hop I love. I think I mentioned before, Uptown Shit is just a golden track for me.
Such a lovely vibe on that track.
Yeah, such a great vibe on it, and the beats they choose, and the jazzy samples and stuff like that, with that classic filtered bass line sound and the big drums and that sort of thing. So I love Uptown Shit. I think the first one I heard, Walk Like a Duck might have been the first single. It was one of the singles. That was the first single. Yeah, that was the first single, and like I kind of like that one, but it wasn't ever my favorite. But yeah, again, it was just a really good example of a Beatnuts beat. Yeah. And the other one I loved, which isn't a Beatnuts beat, is I'm Kurious, which I think was also a single, and I used to see the video for that on MTV and all that.
See, Danny, I don't like that one. For some reason, the beat doesn't seem to work for me on that. I don't know, because the sample is absolutely amazing. I don't know the sample, but you will, because it's
it's Mysterious Vibes by the Blackbirds, and I'm a sucker for that sample. I heard it before on Days of Old by Paris.
Yes,
and I already loved it.
Works much better on that track.
Yeah, I think it does work better on that track, and I think this one it's quite a lazy beat. It's Mysterious Vibes with the 5 stair steps beat break underneath it. But again, that's all it took sometimes for me. Just two of my favourite samples married together and they put the I'm Kurious line from, what was it, Midnight Star or whatever. It just kind of worked for me at the time, and I liked it, but it was surrounded by all these other great Beatnuts tunes, great samples, great hooks. As you say, Steve, he's a really engaging, funny rapper.
You like Fresh Out the Box?
Yeah, I love Fresh Out the Box.
That's kind of got like an earlier 90s feel to it, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah, and Top Notch I always loved. It's got a French rapper on there as well. Lucien is on there as well. I thought that was a bit weird. I've never heard a French rapper on any of these. I don't know. It's just this album is just packed with stuff I loved and used to play it a lot. But it's up against another one of my favourite albums. So I'm just gonna have a think about it while I let Larry speak on the Kurious album. Because I'd like to hear what he says about it.
I do like this. I think I prefer it to the Beatnuts album, just because it's. I mean, it's not wholly produced by Beatnuts, is it? But I think like a lot of it, like you can
most of it,
definitely, it's got that kind of Beatnuts sound all over it. Very similar to their kind of first album. But I think I like 6 tracks. Yeah, I like this better because I think Kurious is a better rapper than the Beatnuts are. Like for me personally, but I still don't. But I don't love the album. As much as I recognise that it is good. Just kind of going over some of the tracks we've mentioned already. Like I'm Kurious. That I do love that track. It's one of my all-time favourites, and it sort of blew my mind when I first heard it. I wasn't familiar with the Paris track that samples the same song, so it was very impactful for me, and I still to this day love listening to it, even though it is, like you say, just a very basic loop. Like you can't go wrong with that loop, really. Uptown Shit again is really good. I had a quick question for you actually, Danny, on Uptown Shit. I think it samples Mystic Voyage, doesn't it?
But it's not credited.
And it doesn't sound like it's this like the album version of it.
I think that they often do that, don't they? They sample somebody else's cover of it, or
a live version or something.
A Roy Ayers affiliate who's recorded it or something like that.
So not quite sure about that, but I do really like it. What's the Real is one of my favourites as well. I really love Casual's verse on that. His voice and his flow just goes so well with the music on that. I think when we spoke about Casual's album like earlier in the run, I wasn't a massive fan of it. I think like the beats just marry up perfectly with his voice on this. So
I think What's the Real
could props for that.
Could sit on Casual's album quite well. Actually, it's quite a similar sort of production.
And I really like Kurious as a rapper. Like there are lots of kind of little sort of quotables that just kind of come to me from time to time. I think I just like to kind of give him his props for some of the work he did with MF Doom like later on as well. His verse on Question is one of my favorite verses of all time. I also love his verse as Biolante on King Ghidorah. That's a really good track. But not to sort of veer too far from it, but but this is a good album. It's not kind of one that sort of ever really made it into my regular rotation. I think it was another Danny special. Sort of I put all the best tracks on a kind of one side of a C90.
I'll probably just put the Beatnuts ones on there. A couple of the SD50s.
So.
I might have left off Georgia the Projects or something like that.
Maybe. I remember like me and a friend of the show, Dave, used to listen to sort of quite a few of the tracks. Like there were always Kurious tracks from this album, like on our little mixtapes that we made at that time. And those are the ones that are kind of quite special for me. But it's a really decent album, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. Which kind of brings us on now to talk about it in terms of its comparison with What the Album by Redman. And this is so hard. I mean, I think Redman's album, to me, is proper, like it's a breathtaking album to me. When I listen to it, it kind of excites me in a way that the Kurious album doesn't. It's a lot more sort of up tempo. It's a bit more energetic, a bit more in your face. It's harder. It's a bit more frantic. There's lots more going on. Whereas I think Kurious's album is, it's a good album, but it's very steady and very, not flat, but it's very, down the line. Whereas Redman's album, there's lots going on. His style is so much more in your face. As a lyricist on What the Album, I think it's the best Redman I've ever heard. His flow on the tracks is just so memorable. Particularly on the track Rated R, for me that is such a quotable track. And for the first time, I think today, I looked at the lyrics because I was, when you listen to it on Spotify, you get the lyrics come up, and just some of the construction of the sentences in that track, and some of the stories and the wordplay and the themes he goes on about. It honestly takes my breath away when I listen to that track. And I often talk about those tracks that make the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. That's one of them.
Yep, I'm with you there, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it's a bit long, and perhaps it goes too heavy on the P-Funk, and it replays stuff that's on earlier in the album. Maybe a few of them could be chopped out. But if you show me a better opening track on an album than Time for Some Action.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so good. It's straight in there, and that Cypress Hill Be Real sample, it's just iconic. I mean, from that moment, it comes in and it doesn't let go. And before you know it, you've been booted out the end of the album, wondering what's gone on. It's phenomenal.
It's almost like a Mama Said Knock You Out kind of. It's on that kind of level.
Oh, definitely. It's got that sort of instant punch behind it. It's an instant banger. I love Time for Some Action, and I just think there's loads of really good stuff dotted all the way through this. And yeah, I think it's going to be a real hard decision as to which one takes it on this. But yeah,
your views, Danny, mirror mine exactly. Yeah. Like in my notes, so everything you've kind of said, I kind of completely agree with. So I think the only thing for me to add is like, I think this is an album that has like proper character.
Yeah,
it really is so distinctive, and his character comes through, and also Eric Sermon's production is just phenomenal. Like it's some classic kind of EPMD production.
Oh, here. Definitely, it's classic EPMD production. It's classic Eric Sermon.
Yeah,
not always brilliant. Like he's got a very muddy sound. Like he throws a lot of stuff at the wall to see what sticks. He throws in like layers, loads of P-Funk samples, and half the time it's very dense and thick. And you can't always pick out what's going on, but I think that's by design. They probably want that kind of muddy, blunt funk kind of feel.
Yeah, it's too funky sometimes. Feels too funky. It's like an overload of funk.
Because he's New Jersey, isn't he? And it's kind of like a more of a West Coast sort of palette of samples.
Yeah.
But from an East Coast artist, and I think that kind of probably confused some people at the time. But I think it's perfect for him. It's perfect flow. And yeah, I've always absolutely adored this album. I've used to put it on and just let it play all the way through, especially in the car. It was a car album for me.
Such a lovely contrast to AZ's album. This has got the character AZ just didn't have. There's no cohesion or kind of thought. Whereas this is like, bam, he really kind of shocks you.
Absolutely. And it's one of those, I could I could listen to it all the way through and would know every track. Usually a lot of these albums, as you get towards the end, it starts fading off and they become a bit forgettable towards the end. This one, I just know them all the way through.
Yeah.
And just would spend a lot of time with this back in the day.
What year was this? I haven't got it.
92.
How this didn't make our 92 list
I know. It just
travesty.
It just depends on who knows it and who voted for it when we were doing our list, I guess. But Larry, what's your relationship with this album?
I think I kind of got into it like in my second wave of rap music buying, but it never really sort of massively kind of gelled with me beyond a kind of handful of tracks. I think we've mentioned Time for Some Action already. That's a Hall of Famer. Rated R's great. Tonight's the Night. How to Roll a Blunt. It's probably my favorite track on there. I think it's a really sort of energetic kind of anthemic track.
Another Kenny Burke flip.
Yeah, I can't go wrong with that one really. He's a sort of unique sounding rapper, like uniquely energetic. I really like that about him. And I think although I do sort of quite enjoy like the music on it, it suffers that kind of it's kind of Eric Sermon stuff, isn't it? It's all a bit samey, and I tend to tire of it quite quickly. So yeah, it's not like an album that I kind of really have a kind of lengthy, kind of positive relationship with, but I like it enough. It's kind of fine, but I don't like it on the level that sort of you do, Danny, for example. Yeah, no,
that's fair enough. It's kind of there's a couple other things I forgot to mention when I was talking about it. Is something I love that they do on this album is they end tracks really early and abruptly. Like he'll just come to he's midway through a verse and there'll be a record scratch and it'll go into the next one. And he'll like end, the music will stop and he'll be still rapping or whatever, and he'll say, come on to the next track. And I love that, just that kind of unexpectedness about it. I always used to really appreciate that. And also the other thing I loved was on Jam for You, the track Jam for You, that samples synthetic substitution, but a part of it that doesn't often get sampled on the little piano line later on. And I always found that fascinating that most people just take the break, but they actually sampled a bit later on, and that was the first time I've ever heard the rest of it. So obviously when I heard that track, the sample later on, I thought, oh god, that's from Jam for You. So yeah, just all in all, just a amazing album that I love. Should we vote on it then, chaps? Who's going through to the final? Let's start with you, Steve. Then, what are you going for?
No, don't start with me. I'm still on the fence. It's so close. I need the thinking.
Right. Well, I'll give you both a little bit more thinking time. I'm going to lay my cards on the table. I'm going to vote for Redman on this one. I think it had a greater impact on me, and I think I loved it more back in the day than I did Kurious, as much as I love Kurious. So yeah, I'm going Redman. So that's one for Redman. Larry, let's come to you.
It's Kurious for me.
Okay, right. Well, that's evenly poised, Steve.
I think I'd more happily listen to it, like tonight than Redman probably.
Yeah, sure. So one apiece.
Gee, it's a predicament. So Danny, I actually thought you were going to go for Kurious, and Larry, I thought you were going to go for Redman. So that's completely flummoxed me.
Expect the unexpected.
I think for me it's the beats on the Kurious album that kind of seal it. Really, there's a bit more variety on there. And just that more jazzy rather than funky.
Yeah, and that's why it's weird that I've gone for Redman. Because on paper the Kurious style of hip hop is more up my street.
Yeah.
And had it come up against probably anything else other than Redman, which I love as a body of work, I love Redman so much that it will override. Sort
you could say it's quite a curious decision you've made there.
Steve, let's come to you to see what you're voting for.
Okay, so I'm thinking at the moment, I think that I think I'm kind of edging to agree with you that actually if I had to decide now which I really want to listen to now, it probably would be more Kurious, but there's also part of me saying it's kind of telling me, but Redman's such a classic album, it's such an impact.
Well, you need to make a decision, Steve. There's another podcast needs to start fairly soon.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go for Redman, and I'm going to go for Redman because it is a classic album. and it's got Rated R on there, which is one of my favourite tracks ever. So Redman, you've just scraped
He's
through.
nicked it. Redman's nicked it. So there we go. We've got our first finalist. Redman's What the Album going through to our final.
Come on, y'all, get live, get down.
Live high, woke up.
It's in your town. Come on, y'all, get live, get down.
Live high, woke up.
It's in your town.
Okay, moving on to the second semi-final, which sees Grand Puba's 2000 going up against Group Home's Living Proof. Two albums from 1995. Steve, let's get your take on this matchup first of all.
Right, well, you've heard what I need to say about the Group Home album, so I'm not going to kind of say anything more about that. But I do want to apologise to Grand Puba, because this actually I do actually like this album now.
And he's listening as well. You know that he's a big fan of the show.
Yeah, I am sorry, and I think it's a real grower, and I think I'd recommend anyone to kind of listen to it, because I reckon this is probably more slept on. Do you think it's more slept on than the Kurious album? I don't know, but I think they're both slept on. Both really good albums. So this one's just got good rapping and nice production, and it leads off really nicely. I love Very Special. That's like such an earworm. I can't get that head at the moment. And actually, he raps with a lovely flow, doesn't he? He's really kind of smooth. And what a contrast to Group Home. I think this is where these two albums are like polar opposites.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Very different albums, yeah.
And he's got some interesting like quotes. You know, he loves to get the girls stink box wet, which is just makes me laugh every time I hear it. And who's Mark Sparks? That's the producer.
So he's the producer on a lot of these tracks, and he's one of my most slept on producers of all time. He's good, like, isn't he? Really good. He does a lot of these tracks. He did a couple on a Special Ed album that I've got, Revelations. Yeah. There's a film where he's one of those that just pops up on other people's albums, and kind of he's usually one of the standout tracks. Yeah. Really distinct style, crisp snare drums, quite jazzy.
I've never really thought too much about who produced this album. Yeah. For some reason.
Well, there's a lot.
Even though I love the beats on it.
I think there's an Alamo track on here as well. But yeah, it's one of those. It kind of just stands alone as a body of work, and you're not analysing it, looking for who produced it. It just kind of flows, doesn't it? Yeah. You know how I feel about the Grand Puba album. I find it really hard to put into words just quite how much I love it. It's like one of those I would just play endlessly back in the day, like from start to finish. For me, there isn't a bad track on it. You know me, I'm a bit of a soul boy, so this album is so laid back, so smooth, so jazzy.
It gets more soulful the more it goes on, isn't it? I think it
does. Yeah. But it's mellow. Like, I used to listen to this while I was doing my homework.
That's a perfect word for it, I think.
It's mellow, isn't it? I used to pop this on when I'm doing my homework. And if you know anything about me, I find it so hard to work with music on that is like anything other than background sort of music or wallpaper stuff. I just can't. It saps my concentration. But I used to put this one on, and I could just work to it because it was so mellow and so laid back. I love the production. I love Mark Sparks. I love the beats, but I love Grand Puba's style on this. I was never a fan of Brand Nubian before this. This was kind of my first exposure to Grand Puba properly, like the first thing I ever bought of his. And his rapping, that kind of sing-song style that he does. I know me and you love this, like we often talk about this, but he's kind of when he would just go into song, midway through the verse, and he's just got such a commanding presence on the track, on every track he's on. And it just works so well. Standouts for me, like you say, Steve, Very Special. I Like It, I Want to Be Where You Are, which was one of the singles, which is just an absolute belter.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
But those kind of the first three are the kind of the ones, the main ones. But Backstabbers was always a little bit slept on for me. I love Backstabbers. The one where he does the kind of to and fro with the singer. 2000, amazing. It's just, I mean, I could go on for ages about this album. I love it so much.
I like Keep On and Amazing. They were the ones that I kind of made a note of that I thought were kind of more standouty. Yeah. Play It Cool's okay as well.
Yeah, and Don't Waste My Time. I love the beat on that. That's I think that's the Alamo beat. Just really soulful, mellow strings, massive beat on it. I can't speak highly enough of this album.
It is great.
It
came out of
good.
nowhere. I
Yeah.
wasn't like a brand Nubian fan.
No.
I'm pretty sure you did a tape for me, Danny, with this on one side and Show and AG on the other.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And yeah, ever since you kind of did me this tape, I've just been absolutely in love with it. It's just probably one of maybe I haven't done my top 10 for a while, but I think it's probably, if it's not in my top 10, it's skating like really close to the edge of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's in mine. I think it's in my top 10. Just absolutely love it. And
He's just such a pleasing rapper to listen to, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he
It's
is.
like you've sort of alluded to it already, but like the sing, like it's not just when he does actually sing. Sometimes it's like his actual rapping is quite sing-songy anyway.
Yeah.
Like on very special. Like that's kind of sort of almost singing, isn't it? The whole
Well,
way.
I think the first few
through, really.
lines, like the first minute or so, he's just singing.
Yeah.
I just
so
love that.
soulful and smooth. He loves to nick bits of his favorite songs as well. Like Backstabbers is like the key sort of example of that.
Yeah.
Where it's not just Backstabbers. He nicks bits from I Wish I Didn't Trust Him So Much by
Bobby Womack.
Bobby Womack.
Yeah.
He's the best friend I got and stuff like that. I just love those little kind of bits that he nicks.
He's like a soul magpie.
And that track actually sort of him trading bars with the female singer. That's really inventive. I don't think I can recall any other examples of that.
Yeah, really inventive, really unique.
It works so well. Her singing and him sort of doing his rappy, singy bit. It's brilliant.
And it's one of those.
Really plays like a proper conversation.
It does, and I bet you can sing along with it all the way through as well.
Oh, absolutely. I can.
Yeah.
All of these songs, I think
All of
I
them.
can sort of sing through to all
Yeah.
of them.
I think that's what he tapped into, wasn't it? There's a real catchiness about this album.
Yeah, but he, like aside from his kind of sing-songy fit, he can really rap properly as well. Like he's a really, really tasty rapper. I think 2000 and Amazing are really good examples of that. But even then, his music, his voice sounds kind of really musical. It goes off the ball a little bit towards the end. Like for me personally, like Don't Waste My Time through to Playing the Game aren't so great. But
I'd start it after Don't Waste My Time. They're not quite as good, but they're still listenable.
What I do love actually is Change Gonna Come.
Yeah,
like I never like in recent years I've really started to love that track. It's just really soulful. I just love the kind of vibe, the message of it. It's as good as anything on the album. Really.
So
it's brilliant.
Yeah, really, really good album. So in terms of its comparison with Group Home, then I mean, I know you love this one as well, Larry. So this must be quite a difficult decision.
I mean, two very different sounding albums, like the very smooth against like the very hard, basically. Group Home is a weird one for me because, as I've mentioned a few times, I do really struggle to get into old rap albums that I didn't listen to at the time. But this is a rare exception. I don't sort of really think I discovered this until a few years ago, like maybe 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
When I just sort of gave it a listen on the off chance, and I still listen to it loads, like to this day. It is mainly the beats. It's not uniformly brilliant, but I think the good tracks on here probably represent like my favorite Premier beats.
Yeah.
They're just so raw. Just those hard drums with like just lovely jazzy samples.
Yeah. They're often quite simple, but they're so effective. They're just instant head nodders. It's like all of them.
He's so clever at doing that, isn't he? Just picking
so
like
good.
a really little repetitive sample and just boom bapping it out. It's just
like, I mean, like a really good example. I'm trying to get it up here. There's like later on the album, there's the Up Against the Wall, like the Getaway remix. It's just I love that so much. It's just there are a few kind of few tracks that I kind of skip a little bit, but I
bet I know which one it is you skip is Serious Rap Shit, because that's the only one on here that's produced by
it's
produced by Guru, that one.
Yeah, it's not terrible, but I do tend to. And
this would be a better album if Guru was rapping on it. I know you two don't like Guru, but he is infinitely better than this.
I think, but for me, like some of there is some appeal in the rappers that are on this. Like I know that they're not like
Larry,
Lil
they're terrible.
Dappers. No, they're
Yeah,
not.
that's the-
They're not terrible.
Well, I
Like,
tell you what. I think I've worked it out. I've pinned it down.
Lil
I think
Dap
it's Lil
is a
Dap.
perfectly. Which is the bad one?
Lil Dap. I think is the bad
okay.
one.
Lil
Well,
Dap is definitely-
Malachi the Nutcracker is a perfectly cromulent rapper.
Yeah, he's all right. He's okay. He's not brilliant. He's the best of the two. Lil Dap, I think it's the way he delivers the lines and that sort of
He's got a weird,
he's got a weird cadence, isn't he?
He's got like it's almost as if he's got like
It's
a.
the same, yeah. It's so
Yeah.
basic.
It's got this like he's got a
Terrible.
speech impediment.
Yeah, and
or
he doesn't
something.
pronounce the words properly. That's
yeah,
it.
but I like that about him though. Like he sounds. I feel a bit sorry for. He sounds sweet.
yeah,
He sounds
sorry for him. Well,
he sounds gentle.
he is
I
living in a
like
group
it.
home, to be fair. So, yeah, he's kind of, yeah.
So yeah, let's admit it. He's not great, but there's something about it that I don't mind listening to anyway. I think like the rapping
production
is
is
perfectly
superb.
fine, but I probably wouldn't listen to an album of them like if they didn't have this kind of incredible production on it. But
That's the thing. I mean, that's why people listen to it. That's probably why people love it the most is the music. They come to it
yeah.
and they're either turned off by the rapping or they kind of tolerate it to listen
But then
to the beats.
I do for me personally, like there are some quite quotable.
Yeah.
There's lots of little bits on there that do stick.
Well, like hitting
in
your
my
mums over
memory.
the head
I
with
hit,
the
I hit your
metal
mums on the
pipe.
head with the metal pipe. I love that. It's so stupid and horrible.
I don't think any other producer has ever quoted a group home from this album. I think it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
Superstar's
there's something about Superstar's great.
There's some,
There's just something about it. I just really like this album. I'm just trying to think of the tracks that they just there's so much good on there.
And with Christmas coming up, obviously Malachi the Nutcracker must be a very popular man.
Yeah.
In demand. Got a couple of walnuts, Malachi. I've got a couple of walnuts here. Can you just open those for me?
2000, that's an incredible beat. But they're all incredible beats.
Yeah. Superstar was always my favourite. Superstar.
Superstar is probably the best on there.
Brilliant.
Sample and the scratch of that, brilliant. It's
Yeah.
I
classic,
think for me it's this and like J-Ru's debut represent Premier's best work. I
That is
think.
best. Yeah, no, I'd go along with that.
This one for me is my personal favourite. There's something about the beats that are perfect for me.
Cool. Right. Okay. So what we're looking at here is then we've got a very mellow, soulful album up against a very hard, proper boom bap New York album. Larry, you love them both.
Yeah.
Steve, you like one more than the other.
My vote's an easy one.
It's an easy one for you. All right. Let's get your vote first, then, Steve.
Grand Puba, easily.
Grand Puba all day, every day. Larry, what are you going for?
Grand Puba.
Grand Puba. All right.
It is quite simple, just because it's not like for Puba, it's the beats and the rapping are so on point.
Yeah, and absolutely, I'm with you.
You can't
I'm with
deny
you
it.
Yeah, absolutely, I'm with you both. Grand Puba gets my vote as well. 3-0 win in the semi-final for Grand Puba. It's just a vastly superior album.
Yeah.
One I listen to a hell of a lot more than Living Proof. And so yeah, it's an easy one for me too. So there we go. That's your final lineup. Redman's What the Album versus
That is
Grand
a hell of
Puba's
a final.
2000 in our best of the rest episode. It's quite exciting, really. This is going to be a massive one. And you can see all the crowds piling into the stadium ready to watch this one. Bit of crowd trouble over there in the corner, but we'll get that tidied up. And
Is that Crazy Legs? I think that's Crazy Legs, Danny.
it is crazy. What's he doing? Got some
Streaking.
flares. Oh, he's let off a flare. All right. Well, let's see if the police can get that under control while we go off and have a lie down and get ready for the final. See you in a bit.
World Cup. The final. World Cup. The final. World Cup. The final. World Cup. The final.
Hello, you join us pitchside here again at the Khalifa International Stadium in Qatar for the final of the Hip Hop World Cup Best of the Rest episode. This was one of the first venues built for the 2022 Football World Cup. It's a beautiful stadium, packed with fans of Grand Puba and Redman, and it's baking hot here. This is why it's taking place in winter. The only thing bringing down the mood a little bit was a disgraceful sight earlier on of Adrian Childs running around, shirt off, throwing missiles and trying to wind up some of the fans that are coming into the stadium.
Really goading them, wasn't he?
Just absolutely goading them. He joined forces with Crazy Legs, and they're up in the aisles, up in row Z.
He's showing off, isn't he?
Just showing off. But thankfully, the stewards managed to catch him, and they both appear to have been subdued. So let's just forget about that nastiness. I'm sure FIFA will deal with that in their own time.
You think we might get fined for that? There might be.
We might get fined for that, unfortunately, but we can deal with that from the revenue we're going to make from this episode. Let's focus on our final now, which sees Grand Puba's 2000, his album from 1995, going up against Redman's Whut, the album from 1992. This has been a long, grueling, very taxing Hip Hop World Cup. Some great albums have fallen by the wayside. Are you happy with our finalists, Larry? You think this is a fair final?
This is how I assumed it would turn out.
Yep.
I think, and I don't think it's unfair.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Steve, are you happy with our finalists?
Yeah, really happy. I was. I think I don't know what you two do, but I always kind of go into an episode thinking, this is the album that I want to win, and I couldn't choose between these two. And I thought, it's going to be one of those. So now we've got to actually decide.
I am a bit curious as to which one is going to win, actually.
Yeah, I know. Could flip a coin here.
I honestly, it's weird right now when I'm having to think. As I'm talking, I'm thinking, God, what the hell am I going to choose?
They're quite different. They're really different, aren't they?
I think Danny's the key to this one.
Yeah, I think so. I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm going to have to revert back to, 1990s Danny. What was he doing? What was he listening to more?
You've also got to go with what you can listen to tomorrow, though.
Well, yeah.
When you're lay back on the couch doing a bit of work.
That's true. Yeah. What would I listen to today? What would Soul Boy Danny of today and tomorrow listen to?
I think you need to go last, Danny.
I think I need to go last because I can't even process it in my head as I'm talking. But
Larry, do you know who you're going to choose?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, definitely.
I'm still on the fence.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put an early goal in there for Puba.
Yeah, that's 1-0 for Grand Puba.
Well, I'll jump straight in there and I'll put one in the net for Redman then, because let's make Danny make the difficult decision here. Because
why are you going for Redman over Puba?
Yeah, you can't just do it for the Jeopardy.
I definitely want to do it for the Jeopardy because I can see Danny squirming like anything, and I think maybe what you're saying. I think actually probably tomorrow I'd listen to 2000, but I think next month I'd revert straight back to Redman because it's an album full of character, some amazing tracks on there. He's one of my. I really like Def Squad, so I would always kind of go back to listen to them and to his stuff. So I'm going to be loyal to him, even though I stitched Grand Puba up in the 95 episode that he missed out on. I don't feel I owe him enough to kind of vote for him in the final. So
I think he's probably got further in this competition than he would have in 95.
Yeah,
I expect.
Yeah, that's very true. So Redman, better rapper, lovely. I love Eric Sermon as producer. So Danny, it's all on you.
Yeah, thanks, boys. I just
you really don't know, do you?
No, I don't know. Here's my problem. What am I judging on? Am I putting myself in the shoes of a young Danny and I'm judging it on what I liked back then? Am I judging it on what I would listen to today or tomorrow if I put a hip hop album on? And in the past, I've judged it on what I would listen to back then and what I've always considered to be the best of these two. And then what else do you bring into the mix? What did I listen to most?
You've just got to say which one is the best album out of and justify it. Which one are you going to take with you to a desert island tomorrow?
Okay, all right, okay. On that basis, I am going to select Grand Puba.
Oh, no way!
As my winner.
Now, I think that was a clincher. It was a desert island thing.
Yeah, the desert island. I think if I took it on a desert island back in the 90s, I probably would have taken that one because it's more listenable. I would have got more out of it. But what my other problem is that I'm very aware I've got this sort of imaginary group of normal hip hop fans on my shoulder going, Danny, you got to vote for Redman. It's the better album. It's
idiots,
what we all like better. He's a better lyricist. And then I've got the people on my right hand shoulder. It's all the soul boys going, yeah, but Grand Puba's album, it's more up your street, isn't it? It's got soul samples in it. He does a bit of singing. It's got backstabbers on it. And you like backstabbers, don't you, Danny? Why don't you pick it for that reason? I've got these little people on my shoulders, and I think the people on my right shoulder, the soul people, have won, and they've convinced me. combined with
It's just a nicer listen.
Yeah, I enjoy listening to it more. Like when you listen to Redman, you get hyped up, you get amped up. It's exciting. It gets your blood pumping. Yeah. And sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Usually when I'm in the car, but most of the time I'm a kind of more of a mellow person, and I prefer things that are mellow and soulful. And I think that's why I'm really happy to have made Grand Puba the winner of our Best of the Rest Hip Hop World Cup.
I think that's
so there you
justified.
have it. I think that's just about justified. Yeah. If you look, I know there's going to be some people out there wondering why the hell Grand Puba's 2000s has won our Hip Hop World Cup, and that's fine. If you want to get in touch, please do so. But I think in terms of the people in this room, I think it's a fair outcome.
I think anyone that has properly listened to Grand Puba won't be surprised by the outcome.
No. And people who have listened to all our previous episodes and what we've said about the sort of hip hop that we appreciate and like most.
Yeah.
I don't think it will come as any surprise. And we don't have to toe the line as to what hip hop world in general likes, do we?
So well. Can I just set myself apart from you two there?
You did. Yeah.
Dr. Octogonecologyst is by far the best album in this World Cup, and you two you two should cop some stick for that on social media.
Absolutely mental. There it is. Our winner is Grand Puba's 2000, and joining us now on the line to talk about his triumphant victory in our Hip Hop World Cup Best of the Rest episode. He's been on the line waiting the whole episode. Is Grand Puba himself.
Do I have to apologise to him?
Yes, you do. Grand Puba, great. Thanks for joining us. I know we don't have much time with you. Just a couple of questions. Listen, how are you feeling about having won our Best of the Rest episode of Hip Hop World Cup?
I'll get this cat backwards. Let's try to figure this out. So he's like, yo, you make something.
Grand Puba?
Is it because I said sorry?
Ready, so it's up. Yeah, that's crazy.
There's no sound coming through. Grand Puba?
So once again,
right. Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like making this album? Give us some anecdotes and stories about your time recording 2000, your 1995 album.
Well, when that started, I think that.
Not again. Not again.
Shall I phone up Stud Doogie and see if he can get into unmute him?
Might be a loose cable. Oh, we've lost him. He's gone. Oh well. Okay. All right. We haven't had much luck this run, have we? I thought maybe just for the bonus episode we'd get a decent interview at the end, but unfortunately not. Such a shame, because he was there listening to it all the way through. Anyway,
nice.
Never mind. So what do you think of our winner? Listen, whether you agree, disagree, or just want to share some of your thoughts on 90s hip hop in general, hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Hip Hop World Cup. But for now, thanks for listening, and until the next episode, we're ghosts like Patrick Swayze.
A battle to the death. Classic albums clash until there's only one left. A killer contest, but before we get to it, there's rules to this game, so let me tell you how we do it. 8 classic albums, 1 classic year. Draw 'em out the hat and chew the fat right here. We rate 'em, we slate 'em, discuss 'em and debate 'em, analyze the beats and quote the lyrics verbatim. When all is said and done, we put it to the vote and tell you which of them has won. Then it's to the semis and the final for the final cassette or CD. So who will it be? We going all in, so on the sound of the whistle, let the games begin.